So let me ask you just kind of we've touched on vacations and stuff in the past, and you were talking about a couple of shows ago how your main vacations this year were going to be try to get to Virginia and Orlando. Was that the destinations?
Still trying to get to both. Yep.
So have you ever had or experienced a bad vacation? A bad vacation?
My dad, when we were kids, took us to Las Vegas,
Okay.
which I don't know why you take kids to Las Vegas. There's like nothing
That
for
doesn't
kids
seem
to
like a
do.
kid-friendly town.
No, and it's interesting because my parents don't drink either, and my mom doesn't gamble, and my dad really doesn't gamble that much. He likes the slot
Yeah.
machine, but that's about it. So it's like I
Why go
think
there?
I think we went there because the flights are affordable. That might have been
Oh,
it.
okay.
So
Okay.
we went there and we didn't have a car and we couldn't get on the bus. It was poorly planned.
Really?
We tried to go to this like tour out to see the Hoover Dam, but we ended up out in this like shack in the middle of the desert. And then my dad threw a fit on the people, and they even took us back to Vegas. They gave us our money back and drove us back into Vegas. And we ended up getting out. We drove out to the Hoover Dam by ourselves. But the whole trip was just like it was hot. It was tiring. Like what ended up happening was the place we stayed had like a little indoor theme park.
Yeah.
So we just went to the theme park for 2 days, and that was it. That was our whole trip to Vegas. And we went to
So
Hard Rock Cafe, and that was it.
so how long was the trip in total? A week long? 2 weeks long?
Maybe 5 days,
5 days?
something like that. It was just, it was like probably it was the worst trip I've probably ever been on.
Really? Wow.
I've had
Wow.
most vacations are usually pretty decent. Like Alex and I haven't taken a bad one. And then I travel a lot by myself because I like to do stuff that nobody else likes to do.
Now, when you're traveling more by yourself, now do you drive more or do you fly more
I
by yourself?
almost, I don't think I've ever taken a flying vacation by myself.
Okay.
Only thing I've done, but for that is like when I went to like a film festival or some like an event. But typically I do driving trips because I like to I like to constantly go to different stuff. Like
Yeah.
every night I want to be somewhere different and I want to do something different. So I typically just do it that way and not because I now there's a couple trips I've wanted to fly to, but I haven't really done it because it's just more expensive that way.
Now, do you like driving a lot? Although you said you haven't been in a vehicle in 90 days.
90 days, yeah. I do. Yeah, I like about 4 hour spurts of
Yeah.
driving where I can throw in a podcast or something. So like when I went to Minnesota a few years ago, and what I did was I just the whole first day and drove straight to Chicago, and it took me like 11 hours. That was a long day. I listened to an 11-hour book,
Wow.
and then every single day beyond that, I just took a 4 hour drive. So I went to like Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then I took one more quick drive, long drive to from Wisconsin to Tennessee because that's where I was
Okay.
meeting Alex. So I like when I
Was that a
drive,
4 hour drive, Wisconsin to Tennessee?
no, that was 10,
I was going
11.
to say that seems pretty far.
It was the top of Illinois to the bottom of Illinois was took forever, and there's nothing in Illinois, nothing except for Chicago. But I didn't even get close to Chicago.
Yeah.
But beyond that, like when I did the college basketball tour where I went and saw 9 basketball games in seven
Yeah.
days, that was another one where I
What
was
was it?
like
Was it not 9 games in 7 days?
9 games, 7 days, 7 states. I did like 4 hour like I had like one day where I did a little bit more than 4 hours, but I went to 2 games that day.
Okay.
I went from like the longest one I went from Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, I went to Chattanooga for an afternoon game, Nashville for a night game, and ended up in Kentucky. And then the next day I went to a game in Lexington, a game in Columbus, and ended up in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Those were 2 consecutive days, and it was like it was raining both those days.
Really?
Those were rough days. But every other day was like a 4-hour trip where I got there early, did some sightseeing, ate some local food, did some cool stuff.
What's your thoughts on like what about you get nervous or anything driving in the rain?
I don't like it at all. I
Like
definitely.
do you change your speed and stuff? Because a lot of
Oh yeah.
people don't,
Oh, I changed my speed.
but I do too.
Yeah, I changed my speed, and I'm hyper aware when I'm driving. So at those points, I don't like to listen to podcasts. I like to
I was
listen
going
to
to say,
music.
do you turn the radio down
I
and
turn
just
it down,
focus?
but I do it more music than I do podcasts. But then when I'm on cruise control, throwing it on some kind of podcast or book.
I think listening to the podcast or interviews makes the driving go much quicker than music for the most part.
I when I was driving back and forth to Wise and then Kentucky, I realized that if I listen to 3 to 5 minute songs, how many songs do you have to listen to for an 8-hour drive?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if I listen to a 2-hour long podcast, then I only got to listen to a few of them. I'm the same way. Since I don't like to fly, I always listen to podcasts when I fly because it helps me gauge like how far I've gotten,
Yeah.
and it eats the time up a lot faster.
Well, see, when I used to drive, and I miss these days. I think about these days quite a bit too. Like I was thinking today, one of the ways that I even got involved really with doing the radio show was listening to Opie and Anthony. So when they first went to Sirius XM, I would leave the radio station at 6 a.m. quite often and drive twice, would usually about 7 hours. So I would listen to their show, and then I would get to listen to Ron and Fez's show, and then that would be my entire trip, those shows. And then on the way back, sometimes I would listen to sometimes they would show like air a replay throughout the week or one from the past. So I would have those to listen to. So yeah, it was made it much, which I mean, really now that's what I listen to. I try to find Ron and Fez episodes that I haven't listened to, and I actually stumbled upon one today. So I was pretty happy about that.
When I used to drive back and forth to Wise in Kentucky, I would always drive on Sundays, and it would always be a replay of A Prairie Home Companion.
Okay.
And that's how I got into the show. I didn't even know it existed, but I was like, here's something. Let me listen to this. It's kind of funny, and there's music.
So you just randomly stumbled upon it?
Randomly found it. And then what I liked about Sundays is it's the rerun. So as you get into different and it's on NPR stations, so no matter where you are, there's an NPR station. So I would get to like a different NPR station, and they would rerun it at a different time. So I could listen to it like from 2 to 4, and then I'm on another station where it started at 3. So then I can listen to the second half of it again.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like there's 3 hours. And it's interesting because nowadays I still listen to old broadcasts when I'm driving or when I'm flying because I know it's going to take up 2 hours, and I know it's going to be entertaining. I got music. I got everything.